Are we rolling along?
Rolling.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. We are ArtUs Co. If you haven't been here before, we're a 501c3 nonprofit serving the local artist community. We have art studios upstairs. We have gallery exhibitions, workshops, you name it. But feel free to look around after the exhibit. So this is for Deck the Walls, which was inspired and we're showcasing Richard Rees' collection behind us. Hold on, I think we need to plug this in. I think it just started cutting out and then I was like, just because. Understatement, sorry. I mean, we can all hear like this, but.
It's more official with the member.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being videotaped, so.
Okay, cool. So, Richard, I wanted to ask you first, so what inspired this collection?
Really, I love the local artwork and couldn't figure out how to get everybody's pieces into my house. And I felt nothing was more street than skateboard. And I saw Skelly's work on a skateboard. I was like, oh, that's cool, let's check this out. Bought that. And then TV Head was the next piece I bought. And then it kind of snowballed. But a lot of it, though, was also influenced by Jay's book, ATX, Urban Art. And I felt that if I get as many pieces of cool local art as possible, it would be great for me, and it's also great for the community. And it's literally a year later, year and some change, and here we are. And then when I was approached about people want to see your work, I got to thinking about it and said, well, it's going to be a pain to take it down. But then the reality was, art should be shared. And if the artist could also make another piece to sell, then I felt it would be really worthwhile.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really inspiring. I really loved seeing all the skateboards, and like on your Instagram, you were posting all of them. So is this the Skelly? Is that the first one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That was going to be one of my questions. Was what was the first one? What started it off? So thank you for answering that. I brought the book up here with us too, the Urban Art book, which is really cool if you haven't checked it out. It has there's a lot of artists in here, people that you'll see on the street. It's got a really cool history of the street art in Austin. I was also going to ask you, do you feel like you've seen an impact in the local art scene after you started collecting?
I don't know whether necessarily an impact, but I think it's, define impact. I've had people now, friends of mine that have bought decks. Other people have said, oh, that's really cool. Again, I didn't start off that way, it's organic. But I think I felt the energy though, and I had a lot of artists say this has been really cool because it allowed me to explore new dimensions. And because taking somebody, let's say a street artist, such as you and Juan or any of these up here, take it, a huge piece of art, now you got to scale that down, your thought process. And I don't know, all the artists up here know, I've left it, except for Bill's work, it was commission, but do what you want to. So every time I got a deck, it was like Christmas. It was pretty cool. Because I didn't know what to expect, and I think many of the artists didn't know what they were going to do. And several did say, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, whatever you want to do. And that can throw people off, but I think so as far as impact goes, if it allows an artist to think outside of the box, then that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of my favorite things was seeing, it's such a similar shape. I mean, even if some of them are a little different, I feel like that's a snowboard over there. But, and some of the longboards and old style. But I like seeing how everybody had a completely different interpretation of what they were gonna create on the board and different mediums. I mean, I never envisioned ceramics on a skateboard or weaving on a skateboard or even a lamp on a skateboard. So it's been really cool. So yeah, maybe one of the impacts was that you gave, you let artists know that you can be paid for having creative freedom and for expressing what you want to do. It doesn't have to be like a hyper-controlled commission. Anyway, I thought we could ask the artists some questions as well. I'm happy that y'all are here. I mean, there's over 100 artists in the show, so that's just great that y'all are here. So I wanted to start off by asking what inspires you as an artist, and we can just go one by one, so if you'll just pass the microphone. So what is like one of your biggest inspirations as an artist? So, Tavis.
I get inspired by lots of different things. I get inspired by nature and other artists, and for the board in there specifically, it was inspired by a Bible verse talking about how our life is but a vapor. So I was thinking about that, like fire, like wood catches on fire, and it's like that's when you're alive, and it's like fire goes out, and that's it.
Hi, I'm Dan. What inspires my work is also a lot of nature and science and, I hate saying this, sorry mom, psychedelics. A lot of my work happens to deal with a lot of vices and things of that nature as well, but a lot of it, at least for the new series, this one and the other one that's at Almost Real Things, has been nature and landscapes of Texas.
What's going on? I'm Steven Gelos, and I gotta say life. I feel like art is an expression of how I see the world and helps me process whatever's going on in my life. And with my style and medium, it's kind of just like going into the depths of my mind and seeing how far it can go, like how weird, how cool, and just seeing a part of me that I like used to hide. But now it's like, I'm gonna express this like weird, like green lady that I have and just ride with it. I'm gonna make her pink. And like, it's just kind of fun to see, not really having a plan, but just trusting that something cool is gonna come out of it.
I'm Laura. I think nature is probably my biggest thing, like flora and fauna, but not just, it's really, for me, I research a lot of the symbolism of what I'm looking at or what I'm painting and how I'm connecting with that, whether it's a memory, whether it's an emotion, whether it's about someone else, and like it's that connection and the symbolism in nature.
Hello, I'm Dylan. Is this working? It feels like I just grabbed. Anyway, you might be able to hear me anyway. My name's Dylan, and I guess what inspires me the most is kind of my mind's eye, like what I see when I'm closing my eyes and just kind of have a blank canvas in my own mind. I see these things, these geometric and Celtic interlacing knotwork, but it's very fluid. It moves and changes a lot. So when I try to capture it, it's me trying to like capture something that is very fluid and just kind of always racing through my mind. So it's just kind of me trying to, I don't know, manifest my mind's eye. I guess that's right. But
I love that we're just passing it around. Thank you guys. Yeah, and thank you for introducing yourselves as well. I had another question as well. Do you have a preferred medium that you work with? And, where can we find more of your artwork?
When I'm working on canvases, I primarily use acrylic paint, and then when I'm painting outside, I use mostly spray paint. I experiment with lots of stuff, and I'm also just starting to get working with wood, so I'm excited about that. And right now, I have a lot of work at the WCC Gallery downtown, and hopefully be showing some other places too.
Hi, I mainly work in wood, and I usually hand carve everything, so there's no cheating, there's no Dremels or laser cutting or anything like that. It's all hand carved with chisels or gouges. Afterwards, I usually paint them and then ink them, so think of it like a traditional lino cut or wood cut print, but instead of printing them, I showcase the block, because all of the work, in my opinion, goes into carving and the block. Boom.
I am the collage guy. That's my main thing. So I love repurposing old materials, also finding images online, throwing them in Photoshop, printing them out myself. So pretty much a lot of paper materials, but I will experiment with spray paint, paint markers. But I love my medium because I can add multiple layers and different things, and it's not siloed to just one thing. So.
I paint with dye on silk, so everything I do is fiber-based. It can be like wearable art, or it can be, I will sometimes adhere it to canvas, or obviously to a skateboard. And I'll stitch on it as well. You can find my art right here at ArtUs Co. My studio is upstairs. If you turn right, I'm the last door on the left, and it is open, so please feel free to explore.
Hey, I do multimedia. I like all sorts of different mediums. I originally started with paper and pen, but I like tools and all sorts of different medium. I don't think there's such a thing as cheating as far as using tools.
Oh, I beg different.
Well, the reason I say that is because I do use lasers, but it's only one piece of the tool, and I'm not using it in order to like bypass the chisel. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, a chisel could be seen as a cheat. You know, why don't you just take their fingernail? my only point is that they're all
I'd love to
tools.
see you carve something.
Right, well, I'd like to see you try to get like a perfect laser line with a chisel. So it's just different tools for different things. I don't know. I just love tools. I'm kind of a tool geek, and so whether or not it's whether it's like
Friendly fire.
I mean, I love handguns. Handguns.
Oh, whoa. Alright, calm down, Tex.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what the hell's going on. But my point is that I like tools. I like multimedia. I do all the multimedia, whether or not it's a piece of paper or a computer. I don't think there's so much thing as cheating in that sense. Maybe on a more micro scale for individuals, I guess there is. But anyway. Never mind that. And as far as finding my work here is at ArtUs Co. I have a studio upstairs, and my website is DY9 Design.
Richard, you can say that. NFTs could be cheating. AI art could be cheating.
NFTs.
Anyway, typing in prompts. Although there's some cool stuff, but anyway, I don't.
Actually, I would agree with you on that. I think
There's some cheating. Stealing other people's art. Anyway, thank you. That was got a little heated over there. But I love that we have people with all different mediums on the panel, which is really cool. Everybody's represented. I had another question about this, Richard, you could answer this as well. Is like, what are your feelings about the Austin art scene, and what's one way that you would like to see it grow? And it could be a feeling or an experience.
I mean, the Austin scene, every time you turn around, you discover new artists. It's a really big, hotbed. Similar to the music scene. We got a lot of musicians, we got a lot of artists here. How do you discover those? Good or bad, Instagram has been a good source. But to support, you go out and you buy some art. The good news to me with the skateboard size and the smaller art, you get a great piece, a great skateboard for under $2,000. I mean, I paid that for print. And so I think that anybody that's looking at getting in and supporting the local artists, a skateboard or a smaller piece of art is a great place to start, even if you can't afford it. I mean, frankly, I was raised in a family, we were around art and music all the time, but it's whatever your emotions went. But back to the Austin scene, I had it's an amazing scene, and that is where I get a lot of joy, is discovering new artists and seeing, you know, new things. And part of this journey has been artists reaching out to me, seeing the Instagram post and say, hey, can I make a deck for you? I'm like, sure, let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear from the artist perspective, you know, what do you feel, what's your experience being a part of the Austin art scene, and if there's some way that you would like to see it grow or change in any way, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I agree with Richard that, you know, there's a lot of artists here, and it's a very creative city, and that's really
We go. Technical difficulty.
Yeah.
Hold it so it looks official.
I do think, like, maybe compared to the music, I think the music has gotten a little more, I feel like the visual art's kind of always been in the shadow of the music a little bit, and I do feel like that's changing, and the art is kind of coming of its own, and that's, I would like to see that happen, continue to happen.
We don't have to pass the mic.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna pass it.
I couldn't take
Tradition now.
that.
It doesn't feel right.
I'm more of an analog person, you know.
Passing
This
it
guy.
down.
Yeah. It's like our peace
I feel like Austin.
Besides, you would be cheating if you actually used it.
Exactly. Fuck this thing. I'm gonna hold it this way now. I feel like Austin now, we're what, the 10th or 11th largest city in the United States now. It's getting momentum, and it's gonna get there where LA or Miami's art scene are, even New York, it'll get there. It's just a matter of time until people start seeing Austin as an art hub.
Yeah.
Now we can speak. This way?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I believe Austin was a very welcoming and encouraging city for me to express my art, because I lived in New York for a while, and I would never, cheers to that, I would never think of actually pursuing the artistic as a career path there. Just a lot more gatekeepers and things like that. But when I had the idea of doing it here, it felt very accepting, and when I first started putting out my work, it was very well received and encouraged, and it was really beautiful to be seen for this like weird idea that I had, and just have it like people, I find it like a lot of artists here want to help one another out, where other places I've lived, it's like, what can you do for me type energy, where here it was like, oh, I have this idea, and then people are like, go for it. So that's why I love the encouragement that the scene, and I think it's just growing and growing, and it's going to be something very big soon, so, or it is.
I'm still fairly new to Austin, I feel like. I moved here 3 years ago. Like next month will be 3 years. So obviously I found this space, and it's been really incredible. We're a really solid core community of artists here, and everybody does something different. It's been very welcoming. Another thing that I've tried to do this past year is explore a lot of the galleries, go to a lot of openings, like see Canopy and all the, you know, Almost Real Things, all these other galleries that are out there in Austin, and I've met a lot of artists that way. And I was kind of gonna say the same thing, like, I was a high school teacher for 15 years, high school art teacher, and so in my classroom, my main motto was community over competition, and I really feel like a lot of Austin artists have embraced that, and it really is very welcoming, and a lot of artists want to just encourage each other and just motivate each other, and that's one thing I really love about this city.
Yeah, I like that. I saw something similar on Instagram that was stuck with me that said like great artists help each other and mediocre artists compete with each other. And that's, I think, really helped me in kind of putting myself out there in the world that I haven't been doing for a long time, and realizing that we're not really competing. I mean, maybe we might compete a little bit to make each other better, but really we want each other to be more successful. As far as what I think I would like to see change, I mean, I really like what Richard has done here as far as sharing his collection. I mean, there's so many collections out there, private collections out there that nobody ever gets to see, or very few people get to see. So bringing your stuff out here and allowing us to all share it and add to it, I think that's beautiful. That's what to see about that.
Yeah, I think it paves a path and it shows that you can be a collector. You know, you don't have to make art. Like I hear it all the time. People come in here. I try and do something. But I hear it all the time. You know, people come in and I don't know why they have to tell me this, but they always have to tell me,
oh, I am not creative, I can't do anything, I can't even hold a pencil, you know, or whatever. And I'm like, well, but you can appreciate art, and we need people appreciating art as well. If you could paint like I could, then why would you buy my stuff? You know, but it's also, well, I also buy it from other artists sometimes too. And that's okay as well, because recognizing that somebody can do what you can't do. And if we all lean into our strengths, you know, we get better. Another thing that I thought about was Cherry Cola Dog, and some of us remember that, but that was like a huge incubator for artists. And I remember I had been making art for a long time, but I wasn't able to show it anywhere because I didn't have like a big enough cohesive collection, you know, like nobody was interested in selling my stuff. So I like to get an opportunity to like put one piece in a show and show up with other artists, and then have another opportunity every month to show something new. So I was like making something new, and everybody was making something new, and the opportunities lead to growth. And I wouldn't be here now if I didn't have those opportunities. So I think Austin is a really amazing place to give artists opportunities. And we are a more grassroots city, and we do support each other. You know, we don't have to be a hoity-toity LA or New York. You know, you find some of the best art in a warehouse. So anyway, just been thinking about that lately. That's why I also love being here, because we're not a warehouse, we look a little fancier, but we get to showcase really badass local artists. Anyway, I thought, you know, something else I wanted to ask, and I guess now that we were talking about the scene, is if you had any advice for an artist who's just starting out, as if you had a piece of advice, even if you could go back in time and tell yourself like 8 years ago something, what would that be? Maybe Richard, do you have anything you could say?
I want to add to the last comment.
Okay.
Just my brain went.
Yeah.
We need to think. The one thing I think Austin does need, or two things Austin needs, is they need to take all the murals and preserve them and put them into a tour type atmosphere.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City has that. Nashville has it. Missy and I went to Nashville, and they drove us around in a golf cart, and everything was well preserved, numbered, walking tours. I've talked about this to several people, and it was like, you know, the government crying so slow, as we all know government machines do.
Yeah.
That's something I'd love to see. And honestly, we need something like Art Basel here.
Yeah.
You know, on a lower scale. It doesn't have to be high-end art, but there needs to be one central place to go in for a weekend and find all the great artists. Now, East Tour tried to do that and still does a good job.
So
But that's a lot of work for, you know, somebody to run all over. So if there was a way to do in the convention center or something, one massive showing, so everybody gets exposure, spend a couple of days, like South by, and you get the exposure of great artists. So that's, as far as advice starting out, both my younger and my middle brother are artists. I think, you know, I mean, I don't know about the rest of the panel, but from what I've seen, you never know when it's going to take off for you. And you never know what's going to inspire you. But if you got a passion, I don't care what it is, just pursue it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says about it. Just go ahead and do it. Like you said, it's like, well, I can't pick up a pencil. Well, you can do something, even if it's to collect or buy the art. You can still do something, but always, you know that you're the most important person. And whatever you feel like doing, do it. And you never know what's going to come out.
My advice to a beginning artist would be to not consider everything you're doing as like so precious, because when you're first starting, it's like you're just putting everything into it, and it's like you kind of build up that one piece as this ultimate thing, and I think that that really just winds up holding you back and prevents you from trying things, and That would be my advice.
I would say, if I were to go back in time, don't try to mimic any other artist. Get inspired by artists, but don't try to mimic anyone's style. Find your own style.
Second that. Put in reps, just make a bunch of stuff. So I do small collages all the time, and I still do it. And it's a way for me to get my ideas out. And I always say done's better than perfect, because my early work is way different from the work now, but I had to make the early work to get to where I am. But if I was stuck on one piece for a month, I'm not able to progress faster. So I'm just a big numbers person, so if I just show up and make something, I might hate it, I might love it, might feel indifferent about it, but if I keep showing up and keep creating, my process is just naturally gonna evolve, and I'm gonna dive deeper into, oh, what medium can I explore next? And I just have to get those ideas out, so I always just say done's better than perfect.
My studio at home, I have a quote or saying, I don't know, mantra on my bulletin board that says progress is quiet and slow. And I think that in a world of instant gratification, we expect it to happen overnight, and we also can see all the things that we have to do in our business every day. It becomes very overwhelming, but it's really just one step at a time, what you can do. Progress is quiet and slow, and even before you realize it, sometimes you're like, oh, I've done all these things, and it's got me to this level, so what's gonna happen in the next year? So set very measurable goals for yourself. That's something I do every single year, and just, I have to remind myself that it's happening. It's happening. I need to chill out, right? You know, in our brain, it's never good enough, but you're where you're at because you're supposed to be there. So progress is quiet and slow.
Yeah, I would agree with that in the same regard. That what I was thinking about is just don't give up, because I remember someone told me that I've only really been putting my art out there for about a year, but I've been making it for 30. And now that I decided to actually put myself out there, it's like a slow progress thing that you maybe are not comfortable with, especially because I feel like I should have been doing it a lot longer ago, so I want to be even faster. But I just keep reminding myself, someone told me just don't give up, because there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be stuff that you make that you hate, and that doesn't matter, that's, and there's different varying levels of success, just because one person has one level of success doesn't mean you either can't reach it or that you're not there now. You just have to keep persevering and follow your own journey and not kind of compare it too much to others.
I'll add something to that, is you're not gonna please everybody. So, and there's a different audience for your work, different types of work. One of my favorite pieces of my brother's is 30 years old. And I wish he kept that style just for me personally, but he evolved and moved on. So don't beat yourself up, because what you may not like, or somebody else may not like, you may find someone else that likes it. So the only artist that really is looking for 100% satisfaction are, guys that make movies. They're looking for a broader audience, but there's always somebody that's gonna like your art.
Yeah, I think
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
staying. I'm done with this mic. Done with this mic. Yeah, I think staying true to yourself is really important as an artist. And if you're doing what's authentic to you in your heart, then that's gonna hit the people that it's meant for. But yeah, you can't get hung up on. We get people who come in here all the time, and I'm amazed by what people are drawn to or attracted to. And maybe sometimes selfishly, I wish they were after my art, and they are not, and that's okay. But it's interesting to see what people are into. So what you're making, you may not always realize it is for you, but it also could be for somebody else. And when they find it, it's really special. I guess we can, those are pretty great. I don't have much else to ask. One thing I did want to say is that the exhibit is up through the end of the year. This is only half of the collection. The other half of the collection is at Almost Real Things. which is South Austin. The collection is not for sale, but everything in this room and the blue room is, so you could become a collector today if you want to. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure showing the work. We've had really wonderful feedback, and if anybody, does anybody have any questions in the audience?
I have a question.
Okay.
I would like to hear from all the artists, what is the message that you are trying to convey to the world in your current work?
In the piece in the show?
No, just in general, as an artist, like what is your artist statement currently?
It could be the piece on the show.
If that reflects your, like what
It
you're
could be
trying
a
to do right
different
now.
message per art piece, you know? But I love your question, Mom. Anyway, what's your message?
I don't have like one specific message as like a general artist statement. Because I think my artist statement is more just about the form of the art, and with that I can do different messages, I guess.
Nice. Now I gotta tap that one. Alright. At least with the skateboard decks that I've done for sale and some of my most recent ones dealing with Cowboys or Texas-esque style of work is because I recently moved here maybe 5 or 6 years ago from Connecticut, New York area. So I'm still trying to find like where do I belong in Texas, and like how does my style or my art go into it. And growing up in that region of the United States, being very angry and very just different culture, totally different culture, and a huge culture shock moving down here. It's like, where do I fit in and how do I adjust myself to go in that direction? So it's been really fun to listen to all the different like outlaw country music that I grew up listening to up there, and like finding where it lived down here, and finding where it all belongs.
Love that. Love both of those answers. So far as the messaging, it's very revolved around what's going on in my life and what I'm trying to process. And the whole idea with Get Lost is like, I get lost in making art. And the whole idea is that time's moving fast and slow at the same time. I'm not checking my phone. I'm totally tuned out and in my world. So it's ever evolving. So whatever the Get Lost is going on, it's a lot of times it's like influenced with what's going on around me. And when people look at my art, I want them to get lost because there's so many different elements that they can go, and I want to provoke a certain emotion. So I started adding in a bunch of messages to my artwork, since I want to direct people to feel a certain type of way, where it's like, okay, when you look at this and you read this message, what provokes within you? And I think it's really beautiful to have an intention of like, hey, like I'm gonna make you think about heartbreak in this one, or I'm gonna make you think about your life and your journey, or something spiritual. And I think it's really fun that each piece I can direct someone. Like a song will strike a certain note. That's how I look at it, where it's like every piece of art is a message that I'm trying to convey, and it all varies, but it's around the human experience.
I like the how did you put it, the note? Now I can't.
Like a
say it.
music note?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a song, like you would think of like a
Yes.
certain memory associated with, I listened to this song, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I asked this person out. And that was
Yeah.
the background.
I think the same thing, like a lot of it is something that I'm process or working through. One of my bigger pieces I did this year was conscious flow state, like all about like how we have these, as artists or creators, we have these really intense moments of focus and everything else just seems to kind of fade and flow away. So there's parts of my work that I'm trying to make highly detailed, and other areas that are just fading away, or the dye is dripping. For this piece, the skateboard, the moths are mine with the light. So it's that saying of moth to a flame, and it's this intense attraction, even though it's not always good for us. Like it can be stressful or anxiety inducing, but you know, for me, that's art. That's one thing in my life I've always come back to continuously. And so what am I trying to say through my work? But sometimes it's just for me. There's a piece upstairs that's all about my Aunt Joan who passed away from breast cancer and the parallels of grief and the stages of dying and what she went through and then what I went through after and how there's that serious connection between the two. So it varies, but yeah, it's a process for sure.
I guess for me, a lot of my work is not just trying to message out to the world, but also invite to the world to bring their own message to it. Because a lot of my designs can be very non-representational, and I like how I talk to people who look at it and they point out things that I never thought of or saw in the piece. So I like how other people bring their vision to my work. And so it's more of an invitation maybe, rather than a message, to just participate in the creation of meaning of the work, I guess. With this one's called Solemn Silence, and I guess the message on this one is kind of a similar thing, of inviting yourself to allow you to have the space to bring your own creativity to it. At first, when I was starting to make this piece, I knew that it would be a lot of street art, which I love, and the beautiful bright colors. So I was going to do something like that, but my unconscious apparently had something else in mind. And I ended up making something called Solemn Silence, which is very subtle and not colorful. And I wasn't too happy with it at first, but then I was putting it up on my wall at home and I was realizing it kind of draws you in and brings you closer to it. And I noticed some people doing that at the show too. They were like, because some of the lines are so faint that you really have to kind of get close to see the design. And so I went with that and kind of felt good about that being more, allowing space for interpretation.
It seems like art can be a really powerful way to alchemize feelings or whatever we're going through. Whatever we're going through, we turn it into art and then we can share it and we can maybe help somebody else who's going through that, or it's going to speak to somebody who's gone through that. What was your question?
Well, I loved seeing everything at Almost Real Things, like when it first was there, and so it's been really inspiring for me to kind of see how it came together and everyone kind of made it their own, so it's been really cool. And I know you guys talked a little bit about like, I think you talked about kind of not seeing your first few pieces as like too precious almost. So I'd love to know for each of you if you can remember like one of the first pieces you made or one of the first pieces in this medium that you made. And kind of maybe what that was like or what the piece was like.
Well, I've been an artist for 20 years now, so it's been a while, but yeah, well, I got my start really doing like video, and then through video I got into animation. So I kind of doodled and stuff, but most of my creative output was through animation on the computer, computer animation, and there's like I would just try to visualize music. Basically, this is how I started.
I started, I'm a full-time graphic designer, and I do a lot of computer work and a lot of illustration. I went to school for graphic design and illustration, and while I was in school I took a printmaking class. That's kind of what drove me to doing woodworking, and I grew up doing carpentry with my uncle, like painting houses and doing random carpentry stuff like that. So it kind of went hand in hand, and I just kind of fell into it. And after a while of printing and doing that and not having a printing press at home or in a different studio, it just kind of evolved into that.
Yeah, so one of the first collages I made, I was living in New York City. I was working a very analytical job, staring at spreadsheets, really just like hated everything about life. And I would walk on the streets around New York to clear my head, and I would just look at the street art and all the torn up posters. And one day I was like, I want to make that. And I just went to the art store, bought an art magazine, poster board, glue. I sat in my box of an apartment that was a studio that I shared with a friend, and just threw on music and just sat on the floor and just got lost in the creative process. And that's where like the name comes from, where I was just like, everything for once like quiet in my mind, and I just made something. And it was like such a euphoric experience that I missed, because growing up, I was always creative, never like excelled in studio art classes, but this one just like clicked. And it was like that moment of being like, oh, I can find peace in something. And and that was like one of the most special ones. And yeah, those first two I made when I was in New York in a really dark place mentally, but I found like some light in that it's really cool to watch it blossom into the thing that it is today.
I was a ceramic artist, a potter. In my second year of teaching, I had to pick up a fiber arts class, and so I had never even heard of silk painting before. And if I didn't know how to teach something, I would go in and watch the actual fiber arts teacher, and then I would teach it the next block. And so I still remember her stretching the silk scarf and then dipping the brush in dye and touching magenta to the silk, and it just bleeding out. And it was this really intense color, and just, I think I was taken back almost, like it was just obsession. So I made my first silk scarf alongside the students, and within 6 months I wasn't touching clay unless I had to teach it. And that was 18 years ago. My scarves in the beginning were very basic, filled color, one solid color, no texture, and then just over the years it was like experimentation. I'm still obsessed with this medium. I don't think I ever will not be. I've just added things like stitching or different techniques. I think a lot of artists move around a little bit. Sometimes I'll dabble in watercolor or mixed media, but I always come back to the silk. So that's really where I started. But the work that you see now is not the work that you saw 18 years ago. But it's progress is quiet and slow, right? It's a growth. Yeah.
So let's see, the question's kind of like how we got started, or like first pieces, I guess. I mean, for me, I was in high school just kind of doodling on my notebook and just making things that were kind of nonsense and didn't really mean anything. It wasn't really intentional art. But then I went to Ireland, where I started to connect to my heritage, and then I started going to graphic design school and started just wanting to. I fell in love with ancient Celtic artwork, but I didn't want to just copy what was already done, because it's already been done. But I love all the interlacing and the symmetry and the balance and everything, so I wanted to modernize that and bring my own kind of flavor to the Celtic stuff. So I guess that's kind of what started me off on it, and still kind of drives me, is just wanting to create sort of modern Celtic work.
I also want to answer this question, but because I was thinking about it, and I was in 4-H, so I did all the things. I did like basket weaving, cake decorating, watercolor, drawing and painting, like you name it, I was doing it. It's cross stitch. But I was very proud of this watercolor of a giraffe. And then I think back on like moments where like I was a kid. And then in high school, I painted this goat, and I was like, this is it, you know, I love it. And then I graduated high school, and I painted an octopus, and I named it Sassy. So it's funny that I realized in this show, I painted an octopus for Richard when I had creative freedom, because that one was really like so weird. Like I look back and sorry, but reflecting on like subject matter and what was important to me, and for a while I was just kind of painting random shit, and people were like, why are you painting this? And I was like, I don't know. And then I took a visionary art retreat with Alex and Allison Gray, and they were like, we did meditation and we did things that were channeling our vision, and I kept seeing animals. And then now, I was like, that's what I need to do. But I look back on like what I was drawn to as a kid, and it was animals. That's what I was always proud of, you know? So I think recognizing like what you're interested in as a kid and letting that come through as an adult is also really important as an artist. It's like you kind of do it for your child self. Anyway, I didn't mean to go on that tangent. It just like, I wonder how many of these artists doodled these kinds of things as kids. You know, or liked that as a kid. And then it comes through, you know, in a mature way, but it's still there. You know, it's magic. It's cool.
Well, I love the octopus.
Yeah. Sassy number 2. Any other questions? Curtis, you have a question?
I have a question for Richard.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
How will it stop? You just want to keep collecting? Some escape for all of
I,
this?
unfortunately, when I dive in, I kind of take a deep dive. I'm slowing down, but it's not on purpose. You know, yeah, I never wanted to, again, going back to the beginning, I didn't want to have a bunch of large pieces, and friends of mine are like, well, you can rotate it. It's like, well, then I gotta have storage to rotate the rotation. So no, it's interesting because there are a lot of incoming, it's slowing down, but honestly, I'd love to see this do an annual event.
Yeah.
If it spurs on people and puts the word out to come buy some reasonably priced original art, I'm all for that. There's probably a handful of pieces still coming, and I run into pieces even here that I bought at almost, you know, and almost real things. Because you go, oh wow, that's pretty cool, you know, and I'm able to buy that. I mean, I consider myself blessed to be able to have the money to share it with the community. But I think it'd be cool if it was a catalyst and turned into an annual event where people could plan around, and it gets bigger and bigger, not for me, but for the art community at large, to where the word gets out and people go, oh yeah, you gotta go like Armadillo Christmas Bar, you better go to Deck the Walls and get your Christmas shopping done. So it's slowing down, but there'll never be an end. There's never an end to like going down to Waterloo and buying new music. I mean, that's my second passion, is to, you know, you never know, or books, but it's a fair question, but yeah, it's, one friend said, you need to go to Debt's Anonymous, ma'am, you need to.
Did you have a first piece of art that you bought? Like, just in your...
I remember the first piece of art I bought, and I was thinking about that oddly the other day, and I know it's not around anymore because my parents moved. And my dad, I was not even, I was a teenager. And it was a very random piece. It was a cube with the earth sitting on it, that we were at a street fair in Utah, real well-known street fair called the Park City Art Festival, still going on. And I just remember, I was like, being drawn to it. And he said, all right, let's buy it. And it was a huge piece. I mean, it was not like a small piece. It was, you know, I was wondering if we could get it in the car. And thinking back, I wish it's still around, because it wasn't a great piece in retrospect,
Yeah.
but it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece I can remember I bought. It wasn't my money, it was my dad's money, so you know. But I remember it was not, though, it wasn't ridiculously priced. It was like, and that was the beauty of a good street fair market, is, you know, everything's reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Like this is, I mean, this is, you know, anything under $2,000 in this day and age is a great price for an original piece of art that's quality.
Yeah.
So, that would be ideally where we could turn this into an annual event if everybody's willing and able to draw bigger crowds. And frankly, and Rosemary and Juan know this, I said, I won't be happy until every piece of art's sold here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not because of my ego, but I feel like there's so much great talent, is people need to have this. It's all a question of marketing, you know, discovery, and hey, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, well, and if, you know, I think it's really cool what you did, because with like the amount of money you've spent on art, you could have just put it in one grant or one scholarship or whatever, and like one person gets it, 2 people get it, and everybody has to fight for it. But I think it's cool because it was like buying art from individuals, you're watering seeds, you're nurturing individuals, and then they can grow. You know, if everybody's fighting over like a grant, or, you know, and grants are great, but it's really competitive out there. So it's, if you buy from an individual artist, it means so much. It means way more than buying some shit from Target, you know, like you're actually changing an individual's life.
Well, and you also get to, and that's the beauty of, you know, anybody watching the video is the artists are very giving, and you get to know the artist, then the art takes on a new meaning. I mean, knowing your story about the octopus, that's like super huge now. But you get to know the artist at a one-to-one level, which is you can't do if you're buying a piece from out of state or from out of the region. So I appreciate you saying that you know, spreading the seeds was never the initial intention, but it just kind of organically became that. But you get to know the artist and you go, okay, that was what you had into it, and this is your background. So they suddenly become friends.
Yeah.
And that makes it even having more meaning to the art you're buying. So that's the beauty of galleries, and I would want to thank, you know, Almost Real Things, Natalie and Zach, and Juan and Rosemary for allowing us to all do this and put it on the walls. And by the way, Juan and Rosemary spent 2 days at my house pulling all this down. I mean, getting it down was easy. It was cataloging it. Rosemary sitting there, Juan and I are like keep throwing out numbers and
They're all numbered, they're all
and
organized.
packing, and you know, because I was a little freaked. I said this stuff got returned. It's got to return in the same condition it left in, and we did it. You know, it came out great because now we got a system. But it took a lot of work to take it down, and then to come in and see the amazing job they did hanging it. I had no role in hanging this, so that was a thrill to walk in and go, oh wow. And then also see the new art that all the artists had done. I mean, that's dangerous for me. Yes, already, again, I bought a few pieces, Missy wants another piece, but it's cool. At the end of the day, this is like all good. This is a really good thing.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing your collection.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you guys for being amazing talents. I mean, I'm always in awe of talent, so.
Yeah, thanks for not giving up. Any other questions? Do you have a question?
Bob?
That's okay.
Honestly,
I'd not say here to everything you two said just now. I really was moved by it.
I will say, Richard, I think you've done more for the awesome art community after being here for 15 years than the majority of galleries or organizations have done.
Oh, thank you for
In order
sharing.
just to give artists a free rein and let them do what they want to do. That's huge, like Rosemary said.
Well, and it's up to I appreciate you saying that, it's up to the community now to kind of get energized and create some, you know, I'm happy to help you guys create events that's gonna draw more people in. I mean, galleries all have their place, Bill's at WCC, but each, you know, and even ArtUs Co, you're only limited to how much you can show at any one time. And each place appeals to a different audience. And it is also about marketing, which is easier said than done. But if we can create something to where it generates some excitement, like East Tour, you know, still has a lot of excitement, but boy, it's tough to go to 400 studios for the average person.
530.
500, yeah. I think I made it to one large gallery and a couple side galleries, and that was it. It was great. Made it and saw you over, Canopy, but I appreciate you saying that. But that's really, it's great because it was organic. If there wasn't talent, though, I wouldn't have put money into it.
Well, awesome.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna share the video on our YouTube. I'm gonna link all of our artists on our panel today. Thank you, Bill Tavis, Daniel Adams, Stephen Ecker, Laura Fox Wallace, Dylan Y. Quinn. Thank you all for being here, Richard Rees. You can find all their information on our YouTube channel. And yeah, tell your friends about the show. We're open. It's up for the end of the year.
Bye.